You ever seen a city that looks like it's straight out of the future but feels like a ghost town? I'm talking gleaming skyscrapers, massive highways, beautiful parks, all of it built for millions of people. But when you look closer, you realize something's just off. There's no traffic, the malls are empty, there's just this eerie silence. And no, this isn't some Hollywood movie set. This is a real thing, and it's at the heart of what might be the largest financial bubble in human history. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this $60 trillion illusion. That's right, $60 trillion. That was the estimated value of China's real estate market at its absolute peak, a massive house of cards built on debt, speculation, and the dreams of a billion people. And that house of cards, it's collapsing as we speak. So how did a nation's dream of prosperity turn into a potential global nightmare? Let's get into it. All right, to really get how things got so completely out of hand, you kind of have to put yourself in the shoes of the average Chinese family over the last few decades and look at the choices they had. Or more accurately, the choices they didn't have. So let's say you're making good money in China's huge economic boom. Where do you put it so it can grow? Well, the stock market was notoriously wild. A lot of people just called it a casino. Investing your money overseas? Heavily restricted by the government. And just leaving your cash in a savings account? With inflation, you were basically guaranteed to be losing money every single day. So that left one obvious choice. And this chart right here just says it all. A staggering 70% of all household wealth in China was tied up in property. I mean, just let that sink in. We're not just talking about the family home, we're talking about their entire retirement plan, their kids' future, everything all locked into apartments. And you know, this wasn't just a financial calculation. It went way deeper. It was cultural. This saying, no deed, no bride, it perfectly captures what people called the mother-in-law economy. The unwritten rule was simple. If a young man wanted to get married, he had to own an apartment first. Period. This created this just bottomless, desperate demand for property. But all that insatiable demand didn't just build homes, it built monsters. And look, every huge financial bubble has its main character, that one company that gets way too big, way too fast, and takes on way too much risk. In this story, that monster's name was Evergrande. Evergrande's whole model was basically an empire built on debt. They borrowed just insane amounts of money to build, well, everywhere. They'd buy up land and launch these massive projects, building apartments for millions of people in places where there weren't millions of people. That's where all these ghost cities came from. The strategy was simple. Just keep borrowing and keep building. The whole system worked a little like a legally sanctioned Ponzi scheme. They would take the cash from new buyers for apartments that weren't even built yet, and then use that money to pay off the debts from their last project. And hey, it's a great model, as long as new money never ever stops pouring in. Well, as you can see from this timeline, after decades of just explosive growth, the music was about to stop. Big time. By August 2020, the Chinese government was looking at this mountain of debt and getting terrified that it could crash their entire banking system. So they decided to step in. They brought in this new policy called the Three Red Lines. Now, we don't need to get lost in the jargon. All you need to know is this. Beijing basically pointed at developers like Evergrande and said, you have way too much debt. You cannot borrow another single dollar until you get your books in order. And boom. Just like that, the music stopped. The financial oxygen was cut off. Evergrande couldn't borrow, and as bad news spread, people stopped buying apartments that hadn't been built yet. The cash flow just vanished. In late 2021, the giant defaulted on over $300 billion in debt. And that is when the nightmare really started for ordinary people. The collapse of these giant companies wasn't just some headline in a newspaper. On the ground, it left behind this landscape of broken promises and concrete skeletons. They're called Lanwei Lo, which translates to rotten tail buildings, all across the country. Construction sites just went silent. Cranes stopped moving. What was supposed to be a symbol of progress suddenly became a monument to failure. Okay, and here is the part that is just so devastating, the real twist of the knife. In China, you have to start paying your full mortgage before the apartment is even finished. So you had millions of families who poured their life savings into a down payment only to be left paying a massive mortgage on a concrete shell that would never, ever become their home. And they were absolutely trapped. I mean, what do you do? If you stop making your monthly payments for a home that doesn't exist, the state-run banks destroy your social credit score. That means you can't get other loans, can't travel, can't even get certain jobs. You're stuck. This level of desperation led to something that is almost unthinkable in China, a mass mortgage boycott. Thousands and thousands of homeowners actually organized online, threatening to stop paying their mortgages all at once. It was this incredible act of civil disobedience that just showed how completely broken the system had become. Now, that boycott definitely sent shockwaves through the government, but the truth is, the fundamental damage was already done. The trust that people had in the system was just shattered. So, what's happening now? Well, the government is trying to pull off what you could call a slow-motion demolition. They're trying to let the air out of this massive bubble very, very slowly, piece by piece, because they're desperate to avoid a catastrophic crash that could send shockwaves through the entire global economy. It is a messy, painful, and deeply uncertain process. But the hangover from this party is very real. Property prices are falling, which is literally evaporating the life savings of the middle class. The whole China miracle story is facing its toughest reality check ever, and that core belief that property prices only ever go up, that's been completely shattered. You know, in the end, the lesson here is a timeless one that every generation, everywhere, seems to have to relearn the hard way. Debt-fueled speculation can build some incredible things, sure, but it can't defy gravity forever. As the old saying goes, trees just don't grow to the sky. Which leaves us with this one last kind of haunting thought. China built this physical monument to its ambition. The concrete is real. The empty cities are still standing there. But the dream that fueled it all, that unwavering belief that tomorrow would always be better and richer than today, that dream is gone.